right, Rio here in my office in this fall 2017 semester, and I'm going to go over some topics that I usually start talking about this time of the semester, but I'm actually going to talk about it in a detail that hopefully you will get and we don't have to do much more of, but regardless, it's an important topic. So, actually at this point you're going to go ahead and start taking some notes, right? So go ahead and bring up your Classroom doc, your Google Doc, and put week 12, okay? I'm going to move over to, in a second, into screen so that we can talk, actually look at more detail about the way the semester ends. And you might think, wow, it's week 12 and we're talking about the way the semester ends. And yeah, I find it really helpful if students hear this enough times to where by the end of the semester they completely understand as much as possible how this class wraps up. And I will tell you that, and you'll see this in the screens as we talk about it too, it really is, right now is the best time, because as we move each week along, if you're still playing catch up as we approach the end of the semester, you know, 15 or 16, week 15 or 16, and you're still trying to play catch up, it's going to become extremely hard. And here's the reason is that I know I'm not your only class. I know that's true. And your other classes are going to have end of the semester work that's probably much more significant than the stuff that you've had along the way. So trying to complete from past work and get through the end of the semester work that we have will even be more of a challenge. So now I guess I'm really speaking to those students who are at this point not passing this class. So, but everyone, it can always benefit from understanding too, and reflecting on how the end of the semester works. Because the other thing about this is it's different for everyone too. Depends on what kind of classes you're taking, what they require for the end of the semester. So these are just things that it's good to reflect on. Okay. Now, having said that about, this would more be targeted to students who aren't passing. Those of you who are, the other thing that you can do, and I will commit to having this by Thanksgiving, is you will have the rest of this course already available to you to where you could complete early. I have had students complete a couple of weeks ahead of the end of the semester, and I think that's really good, because part of why I work you steady throughout the semester is so, and you'll see this as I review the schedule, that it is really helpful that I taper off work towards the end, because I've worked you steady, right? That if you've kept up with the work and you're willing to work a little ahead, finish early so that you can focus on other things. I do purposely lay out this class considering those things. So just wanted to give you that FYI. Okay, so let's turn to a couple of screens and take a look. Okay, so week 12. What's going on, what's happening, what's that, right? So it's that time of the semester where I like to really focus in and make sure this is in your heading at the end of semester topics. So first, dates, right? So to look at this, I'm actually going to flip over and flip to the calendar, which if you don't do, I recommend definitely checking this out, as it sets where we're at. Now I'm actually recording this in week 11, and this is for week 12, okay? So, but I'm just going to roll forward, right? So through November, here are the items coming in. And here's what happens right here at the end of November and in week 16 is that the prior week we end the chapter quizzes. So in week 15 you'll have your last chapter quiz, and then in week 16 you'll end your My IT Lab exams ready for your last lab test, right? But also keep in mind here, right, we have a Thanksgiving holiday, which generally means I move these two items to here. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Do that here because the truth is, right, it's the holiday. You should be, if you can, taking a holiday. Some folks will actually intend to work that time to get caught up or to try to work ahead or finish whatever it is. That's fine too. So, but here at week 16, and we'll just roll ahead 1 week into week 17, you'll have your, so you can see the decrease in items here, and actually it starts right here, is that we will no longer after week 16 have hands-on. So that means the Code Academy, we will end Code Academy in week 15. And it's not flow control here actually. You'll see that as I complete rolling out that new course on JavaScript. Okay. But having said that, let's go back. So our hands-on ends in week 16. In week 17, the chapter quizzes have already ended. You do your last lab test, and then you have your last classwork in this week 17. And here is that very important date. Okay, so the dates as they roll in our class. So the last date to do work in this class is, and this definitely, of all the important dates or all the important notes, this is it, is when you take the final. Okay, so it will be made available to you by Thanksgiving, if not sooner, and it may actually already be out there. I can double check. But in this, I'm just telling you, is that the final will be available, or the last date to take it will be December the 11th. Okay. And then in addition, okay, and this is really what I was trying to say here, right, about how it works, right, if I'm looking at this calendar, right, this is also the last date to turn in late work. Okay, so this date, this December 11th for this particular semester, and again, if you're taking this in a different semester and you're seeing this, just roll forward and look in your specific case, okay? So this will be the last date to take the final and to have completed it. Now, by the way, the final, and put this in your notes, will be located in my IT lab. And that you will report your score very similar to the way you've done everything in my IT lab, is you'll report your score to me in Canvas. Okay. So your last date to take the final, your last date to turn in late work is here. Okay, so and then I will get up and I will probably be grading as late as I can, and as you all hopefully know by now, it's really the following morning because I will get up, I'll grade as late as my schedule allows on Monday, December 11th, and then I will wake up and finish any grading that was done overnight, and then on December 12th will be what's called, and please put this in your notes, review day. Okay. So what is review day? So review day is that date when you can look at your score in this class and you can ask me questions, but you can no longer work on the coursework. But if you feel like that something wasn't checked that you had asked me about, that you had made requests, or there was something you had completed, but you felt I didn't handle it or didn't do it, then that's on me. Sorry, and you to make sure on that date we do that. Okay. Now, by the way, you don't have to wait till this date. I definitely recommend you doing it sooner than this date. But FYI, this is absolutely the last date, this review day. Now I'm going to give you 24 hours. So from that morning, that December 12th, Tuesday morning, you will have until the next day, Wednesday, December 13th, right, to ask me questions about your grade. But once that morning passes, right, then we're done in asking questions, and you're done with classwork if we're backing that up to the morning of December 12th. Make sense? So at this point, right, so it's the beginning of the last week, the week 18 of the semester, and we will finish our coursework, depending on when you're working. Either it'll be before you go to sleep on Monday night, or if you're staying up late, whenever you see what I've graded for you on Tuesday morning. Now, again, and please put this, do not wait that long. Now, if you do, you do, right? It doesn't give you as many options to make things happen the way you may want to. And what I mean by that is, if you're hoping for a specific grade in this class, if you're waiting until then and you're right on the line between one letter grade or the other, it doesn't give you a lot of flexibility. And I don't do fudge. I don't, it's like if you're in that other, if you're in the next letter grade in Canvas, then you're in there. And if you're right on the line, you're right on the line. That's really on you. Okay? All right, let's turn back to the calendar again. Okay, so these 3 days represent the final, any late work you can do. Again, I will wake up, I will grade as much as I can in the evening. I will wake up on the 12th. I will finish anything, but at that point, and you will see this, and I will take away the ability to work in this class. You can only review. Okay? Okay, so funny, Google's talking to me. And then Wednesday the 13th, I will wake up and then post grades. Now you won't see them until later, but I want you to know that that's true. Okay? So that's the way this happens. So in your notes, I need to make sure you've got a couple of things. Is that the My IT Lab is where you'll take the final, and it will be like your chapter quizzes in the sense that you can take it multiple times. Actually, I should stop. Actually, you can only take it 3 times. But you can take it 3 times, and it's not a time test, so you have 3 attempts at it. You can post your highest score, but it is a random selection of all the chapter quizzes, right? So if we go back and look, we go through, I think, 13 chapters. So I believe it's over 100 questions, because that's 10, I think, from each chapter that it pulls. But I can go look at that as we get closer. But I just want you to know how that works, because that's the other thing I hear at this point, right? And when I start talking about students, well, what is that? Well, the final, because your lab test for access has already happened the week before, okay? And then your final will be based on the chapter quizzes, okay? All right, so the other thing I want to show you is, and this is the other thing, so I want to talk about, I already talked about this, the last day to turn in work and the review day, right? So the other thing it's really good to know and to understand is this idea, and let me just go back to our course real quick, is the idea of the what if. And I've talked about it before, sorry, but I'm going to talk about it one more time because that's how important it is. Is because students will start asking me questions like, Rio, how do I get a particular grade? I'm going to switch to the student view. And, so when I'm in the student view and when you're viewing this, you can, of course, look at your grades, right? And you can see the breakdown of the overall grading percentages, right? By the way, that chapter final, 10%. Right, of your overall grade. So that's one item that represents a pretty good percentage of your grade. So when you're looking at these grades, right, and you have scores in here, and by the way, you also have comments in here from me. So if you haven't been checking that out, there are, if you click on that, comments that you can see. So the other thing about this, and this is the what if scenario, is you can ask questions like, what would I need to get on the final in order to get the grade that I would want in this course? Okay, that's a very common thing that students would ask. And so probably, because you already have scores for all this, you'd probably want to look at that final. And you could, it's going to send me back to the top. But the idea is, right, you could put in a percentage and see how that affects your grade. Right? And again, it says, revert to your actual grade. This is not your actual grade right here. This is the what if scenario. But it is really great to do this so that you know what work you want to do to end up where you want to end up in this class. Way, way important. Okay? Because some of you may find, that you don't have to work that hard for the final. right? So in this case, the final will represent 100 points in here, but I already showed you the percentage. And what I will have you report is your actual percent that you achieved. Okay? So even if it's more, and I'm pretty sure, actually, while I'm talking about this, let me just move over and look at, since we're here, and if not, I will release this soon. It's taking a minute to come in here. I'm actually in my IT lab real quick because I'm actually going to end up talking about something else here towards the end. We're just talking about these topics. So let's see if I have released. Oh, I haven't yet. Okay, so what I can do is I can go in and manage. Now this is the part you don't see. It's kind of the, behind the scenes stuff a little bit. So if I go in and look at the exams, I wonder if I can see right here. So here's the final, right? And I was just going to see how many questions were on there. I don't even know if I'd want to edit, but oh well. Let's see, questions. And let's see how many are on here. Yeah. So 5. Oh, it's actually not. Oh, 150 right here on the bottom. Okay. So it is 150. So that's good. I'm glad I found that, right? So so that what if scenario. Okay, so what we were talking about here, just to bring it back, was even though that final is worth 100 points in Canvas, it's 150 questions, and what you're reporting to me is a percentage that you received, and then I'll place that percentage right in this score. Now again, the sooner you do that, the sooner you'll know what your overall grade is. Because here's the other thing I want you to understand is that whenever you complete all the coursework for this class, that score in Canvas then represents the score you get in this class. You got that? So once, and put that in your notes, once you've finished all the coursework, right? So if for some reason you're like, I'm not doing those, just put zeros in there so you'll know where you're going to end up. But if you don't, obviously I will, right? Because at week 17, you're done a classwork. And then, at week 18, that Monday night, if I wake up Tuesday and you haven't done the final, I'm going to put a 0 in there. So if you want to know what your final grade will be, if you plan on not completing certain items, put a 0 so you'll know that. But my point about this is when you've completed all the required items for this class, then that score in Canvas represents the score you get for this class. Cool? Well, whether it's cool or not, it's the way it is. So I just want you to understand that's really what I'm here to do. Okay, so let's go back here to so what if, right? So this is what I was talking about earlier. So now is the time, really, as I say, that we're in week 12, and if you are, in the 60 percentile, you could definitely make this work for you as far as passing. If you're in the 50 to 40 to 30, it's going to be hard. I've only had a few students actually successfully that far behind at this point in the semester actually make it work, and they worked their buns off at the end, which I'm like, okay, well, I actually like to give you that choice if you want to take it. But the truth is, and I know I'm kind of lecturing here, so you don't have to, right? You can get this done now, and you can get this done in a way that's more conducive. But I do like to give students choices. That's really my bottom line, is I want to give you the choice, because everybody's life is different. Different demands come at you in different ways that you have to figure out how to manage. So I just want you to understand, in the way of this class, how it ends, what you need to do, and how you can achieve the grade that you want in this class, because it is not too late. Okay, so let's go back here. So I think that, so now the other topic, and I've talked about this, but I'm going to end talking about it, at least for now. I want to give you an example of the late sheet again, because one of my students did this, and this is a really nice job. And so this would be, right, so anything that you've completed late, right, that you want to get those points back on, and then what have you done to get those points back? So here's the, in this case it's a training, right? Now these are linked to print screens, you can see that. So those print screens would also, so this document, this late work sheet, this late work spreadsheet with links, you could just say late work, that's fine, right? Would also be linked to, meaning these particular items, by adding links in here, right? So you put the text, you get the URL for the, and this is called, the student was calling it practice, it's training, but it doesn't matter, it's the same thing, concept. And then when you share it with me, I'll put comments in here. So how do you do that? This is how it is set up, right? So for every training, you can ask for points returned, which, by the way, and put this in your notes, I don't think I've said this to the online students, but if I haven't, everything in this class you can submit late, except, everything in this class you can submit late. It is late points returned, except chapter quizzes. I actually don't take off points for late chapter quizzes. So you just have to complete them, because if you didn't complete them on the due date, I put 0. So in this case, I would tell this student, you don't actually have to use one of your trainings here. You can use it for something else. Okay? So the reason I do this is really just to keep track of it, so you and I know what that is. So now how do you, let me copy this. So there's a couple ways that we could do this. One thing is, and I just copied the URL, is you could go into Canvas and you could just email me and send me the URL. The other way I've seen students starting to do this, and I think this is actually a great idea, let's just go look, is when you submit something, this is, and again, there's no best here, although I'll say best practices in a minute, right? Let's say you were submitting this late, right? You're going to submit the URL. Okay, this would be the URL for the item that you're submitting late. And some students have already started doing this, right? Late points returned. They don't even put this in here. They just, because that's the link to the late points returned, right? So if you want, and put this in your notes, one way you can do this is whenever you turn in something late, you could at the same time always, you could ask me, or you could offer me up this link to say, please also check my late points returned. Because then you're submitting it late, but you're also getting the full points for it because you're asking me at the same time. So that's a nice way to do it. The other way is just do the work, right? Let me just bring you back here. Just get the work done. And then if you want to, give me a link by emailing it to me to your late points returned, we can do that too. I don't mind if there's 10 on there that you have done late. I've taken late points off, and that you're going to get the points back. That's fine with me as well. Okay? So just FYI. So I think, let me go back here, right? So now that late points returned was one of the things I just wanted to talk about, to give you an example and talk about, because best practices would just be as you turn in late work, do it there. But I don't care, and I should just put this as the next option. I don't care if you just give me, a whole bunch of them in this sheet at one time. That's fine too. Okay, as long as I get it. But here's the question. Let's see if you remember without looking. When's the last time you can submit this? When's the last date you can ask me to grade your late work? When is it? December the 11th at midnight. Or if you do it after I stop grading Monday night, the first thing on December 12th, Tuesday morning. Okay? All right, so so the last thing I want to talk about, I was going to talk about this, but as I thought more about it, but by the way, just since we're here, Google Docs, is that, Google Docs, the way it uniquely identifies each document is by what's called the ID. So look at this ID number here, and I think I can zoom in to show you. Every document has a unique ID on Google. And it's good to know that because what happens is, and we've talked about the URL on Google Docs before, but it's hard to know just by looking at this long URL where that document is saved at. Because one thing that happened is several of you missed putting in certain, like in the network, the week we did the network map and stuff, you missed that step. And so, and it's not that document ID is going to tell you, but every document has a unique ID. That's the way Google keeps track of it. And then when you move it into a directory, it follows the permissions of that directory. Okay. So it is hard to know when you look at just that URL. I've shown you the difference between files and folders, but when you're looking at Google Docs and Sheets and drawings, right, that same thing doesn't apply. So it is good to just know that there is a unique ID there, and you need to make sure when you're sharing stuff. So this would also apply to this late points return sheet. That would need to go in the shared with Rio. Okay. Again, I guess it's not specific, but I just wanted you to know each one of them have a unique identifier. They then don't determine, what determines their shareability is what permissions you set at the folder level. Okay. All right, so that's it for at least that classwork topic. So the thing I'm going to leave you with this week, and this is your last, this is actually because I looked at the chapter this week, so let's change topics for just a minute. So in your heading, put programming language popularity. Because in this chapter, they talk about something really important that I've tried to allude to in this class. First is that JavaScript is different than Java. I've said a couple of this. Some of you still thought it was the same. And I know why you think that, because it's got Java in the name, so you would think so. But JavaScript is the language of the browser. And it is really popular, right? And we had to do a little VB for this class because of it being transferred. And notice, as far as I can see, VB is not even on this chart. Okay? Again, and what's interesting here is CSS is actually a programming language. There is a way to program CSS as well. Okay? Go is getting some popularity, and Go is a programming language that one of our instructors, Todd McLeod, teaches, and that's becoming much, it's at least getting a dot on here. But programming in Python, very popular. Programming in Ruby is still very popular, and PHP, this is what Facebook uses. So so this chapter that you're on this week, so again, I made to make sure I have one more heading here, is I'm going to also have one additional video that you're going to watch, and it may be this one. If not, I'm going to do a little more searching, because we've had some discussion about why it's good to learn code. And the benefits of it in your overall career, even if you don't go into coding, right? But I would say to you in conclusion, right, think about continuing to learn code, even if it's not going to be your chosen career, because it is just good for the brain, and it is good to know no matter what career path you're going to go into. And I will say to you one more time that next semester I teach CIT12 Web Technologies online in a 9-week compressed mode, where you learn Bootstrap, which is a way of quickly building web pages, but you also learn just HTML, CSS, and a lot of other topics related to just how the web works and understanding what the developer community is and things that you need to understand about the landscape. So it's kind of like a 15, but targeted completely at web developers, people that are getting into this. So I just put that in your brains. All right, so again, you'll look for another video here, but you'll have your class topics, which will be the majority of what you have for this week. So hopefully that gives you an understanding of how about the semester ends. And again, looking at the chapter that you had this week and kind of extending a little bit. I am planning on, and I'm not sure which week I'll put it for your classwork, is actually having you, and maybe for your hands-on more, is having you actually create something from the HTML and CSS that you've learned. All right, that's it for me. Have a wonderful rest of your week.